Today is the 25th of February, 2023. Sometime I just have a block. I just love to come home and just unwind. And once you have peace, you have everything. All that stuff that they buy and think that they're gonna have peace, all the big hosts where they get lost. 50 Cent say, when he looked in his house and he couldn't see from one end to the next end, say this ain't no place for no gangster paradise to be. He's selling the house. What the hell is he doing with a house that he can't never see from one end to the next? These boys buy the big fancy rim that costs more than the car, and they can't even afford to get a starter for the car right in the yard. But this video is about education. That's what I try to do, try to inform and educate. And I've heard this story from I was a boy, born in Dundastan, December 31st, 1961. And I hear it through Nassau, Freeport, everywhere, because when you find a fool is a fool. But when you find a black idiot, they just like run them out. We got so much of them black asses and idiots throughout the Bahamas, they can't even try to be educated. And my story is one that I heard for decades, but they don't know. It's the story about the farm in Edison Key. And said Edison Key is the reason why the mud and the peace created. And those black asses and idiots throughout the Bahamas that don't know their ass from their elbow would repeat that story, and they don't know a hell about the farm. They never visited the farm. They never visited the mud and the peas. They just run the black, juicy mouth. And sometimes I want to say something, but I'm on my video, so I'm going to say it today. As a boy, my Uncle David took me to the farm. I never had a father. I never told anybody father. I never had a father figure. I just had my mother. She is both mother and father to me, Althea Mills. And as a young man, my Uncle David used to take me and his sons at the farm. And what y'all with the black idiots that I'm talking about don't know, that Edison Key had housing for the Haitian that worked at the farm. They had housing better than the people in Marsh Harbor, Dundas, and Murphytown. They didn't even have any reason to come to Marsh Harbor because they had a shop, everything, food, everything they want. There they had their own little, on the side, they always sell things that they ought not sell, but they always sell to their people. So the people at the farm, S&M farm, we will go on there and we'll eat ourselves filled with cucumbers. All we need was salt. And we had cucumbers and tomatoes. We'll eat them till we boys. We didn't even have to eat anything when we got home. And we'll bring them up and share them out. But everybody always said how the mud, the mud get started by somebody who worked at the farm 50 years ago. I'm bringing you way back 50 years ago. The Haitians was living better than people in Marsh Harbor, Dundas, and Murphytown. They had better housing, everything that you needed for a city. The farm was like a city, light, everything. We didn't even have light. We had kerosene light back then. We didn't have no electrical light. They were hooked up in the farm with electrical light back then. But the same thing that started the mud is the same thing that started this Haitian overpopulation throughout the Bahamas. Greed and money. Money and greed and the love of money. Not the need of money, but the love of money. And what happened is that some Haitian came up to Mashaba and they were offered more money. Greed. Mind, they were at the farm, had housing, but the greed and the want more, like all blacks. So the Mashaba people, the white people, offered them twice as much to work in Mashaba, but they had no housing. And there is a 25, 30-mile distance between Mashaba and the farm. So what they have to do? They have to find housing. Mind, they had housing at the farm. Edison had them living like the Don down there, had them living better than Bahamians. But the greed of the money that they were being paid in Mashaba, but Mashaba people were not offering them any accommodation. They had to find accommodation for themselves. So like all hustlers, they begin to hustle and start to build accommodation. And the word went out to the farm, man, y'all waking y'all butts off down at the farm. You got good housing, you got good accommodation, you have a salary, but you can get more. You just gotta live like slaves and less of a people, but you get the money. They was not into living comfortably. They were like most black people, they greedy. So they came to the mud and the peace. Back 40, 50 years ago, we used to walk through the mud. The only basketball court was at the Mashaba Primary School. The only softball diamond was in Mashaba. So every young athlete that wanted to play the game had to walk through the mud from Dundas to Murphytown. We walk all the way from Dundas town. No transportation, no bicycle, walk to play basketball. When sun started to set, we start to walk back to the mud. Sometime when tide is high, we had to take off our shoes, our tennis, and walk to the water and come home. That is the story of the mud. No Edison Key brought Haitian to Mashaba. The greed of wanting more and the monetary funds that the people of Mashaba and elsewhere were paying the Haitian for their labor was a little bit more than what they were getting in the farm. The same thing happened right after Hurricane Dorian, you know. All the Haitians moved back. It's amazing how life starts. They moved back to the farm from whence they came. But then again, they understood that the jobs were closer to Mashaba than the farm. So two Bahamians there in the back road, I should call their name. I was there when the first house was built. There's 500 now. I was there when the first one started, the foundation, and I went and found them. So the same thing what you all say happened with Edison, the same thing happened after Hurricane Dorian. All the Haitians were gone. They moved back into history, back to the farm road. But then they realized that the jobs were closest to Mashaba. So one started to build because the same black Bahamians that charged them $2,000 to rent government land, and it spread like wildfire. Before you know it was out of range. Same thing. History has a way of repeating itself. And I'm just telling you the history lesson of the farm, and they call Edison name up in the wrong thing. Them asses an idiot that don't know. The same thing just happened 3 years ago. They went back to the farm, but then they came back, not to Mashaba because the government fenced that in. They went back to the place closest to the job because it's but the money and the love of money and the greed that it's what's fueling the Haitian migration from all government agency. Everybody look out their hands, open their hands, and turn a blind eye to the greed and the corruption that is still happening 50 years ago from the farm. That's one of these Kai kids educating the idiots and the asses that don't know the history of my birthplace of Abaco, Kai Case. Now you got it really, the true story of the farm, the mud, the peace from WCAY, because I live it and I see it over 60 years. Kai still cares. That's why I'm trying to educate the uneducated.